Melissa, you know when sometimes you come up with an idea in your head and you think it's a brilliant idea, and then you actually start to do that said thing and you realize it's not such a good idea?
Of course.
Okay, so this is like could have been almost... So I went up north this last weekend.
Right. You went north and I headed south.
Yes. We both went on little mini vacations, so to speak. I went up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we stayed in this town right across the bridge. If you're not familiar with... Michigan split into two peninsulas, basically. Not basically, it is. And there's a bridge called the Mackinac Bridge that separates the two peninsulas. And so me and two of my friends went, and we stayed in a town just right over the bridge in the Upper Peninsula. And we were determined we were going to see the Northern Lights. And so we were like, well, let's go north, because the more north you are, stands to believe you'd see the Northern Lights.
More likely, yes.
Yes. So we checked in at the hotel. It was like 9:30 p.m. at this point by the time we got up there. And we found a city that has like a no light.
Oh, like a dark sky park kind of deal?
Right. It's like a beach where you basically can't have like a bunch of lights.
Yeah.
And so it was 2 hours from the hotel. So we're like, we'll drive up there. The entire drive, you could like look out and see a ton of stars. Like clear, very clear.
Right.
And we were like 15 minutes away, and all of a sudden, the entire ride too, there's like a ton of bugs. So I keep hearing things hitting the windshield, and I'm like, oh, that's gross.
Right.
We're like 15 minutes away, and I'm like, that's a lot of bugs. And then I'm like, that's rain. And all of a sudden, we looked out the windows, could not see a single star. Cloudy as could be.
No.
And at this point, it's like 11:30.
Did you check the weather?
Yeah.
Okay.
When we checked the weather when we left, it said no chance of rain until 5 a.m.
I
And
see.
we're like, perfect.
Okay.
I checked my phone at that point, and it was like 90% chance of rain right now. And I was like, okay.
Oh, no.
So at this point, it's 11:30, and we're like, wow, we've driven 2 hours. We're like, we'll go. Worst case, we can sit in the car for a few minutes, and maybe like it will clear up.
Right.
And so we get there, and there must be like 100 cars parked in this park. And we thought it was going to be like deserted.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a holiday weekend, anything like that. And so we like get out of the car, and we're like, oh, it's like starting to clear up. We did get to see the Northern Lights.
Oh.
Briefly.
Nice.
Not like a full sky of Northern Lights, but we got to see like the green streaks a little bit, and like you could see a lot of stars eventually. It cleared up. We drove the 2 hours back. At that point, I think we got back to the hotel like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And then today, I was like on Instagram in Pure Michigan. I follow Pure Michigan, I guess. They posted a video from the Mackinac Bridge of the Northern Lights from Friday.
Oh,
And I was
no.
like, so we could have just stayed.
And seen them there.
There was a beach right by our
Yeah.
hotel. We could have just stayed and probably seen them a lot better there. But we were thinking, like, the more north you go. And also, when we left our hotel, it was cloudy there. So we
Right.
were like, you know. But anyways, we did get to see the Northern Lights, which I've never seen before. So that was cool. It wasn't the full sky, but at some point I will in my life.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's just a little reminder that sometimes life does not turn out the way you think it will.
Yeah.
And sometimes plans don't work, but you know what? I don't regret it because it was a fun time driving in a car with people that I enjoy. And I did get to see the Northern Lights, so
Yeah.
all's well.
All's well.
All's well. That ends well. But you know, I'm in a new hell every time.
Oh, boy. Okay, Hannah. Now let me give you a scenario. You move to a new town. A guy owns a store, gives you a loan for a house, and it's like, hey, pay this back with some fruits, some bugs. Sell me bugs for like $15,000. Yeah, put it towards your loan. And this man's also a raccoon dog named Tom Nook. Grifter.
Tom Nook's a little bitch. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Imagine that this is your life, Hannah. You've got a postman who is a bird. Flies, and you can hit him with a slingshot if you really want to. And that's just your life.
I mean, I would take that life.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest.
Right now, I would take it.
Not so bad.
No.
Not so bad. Welcome. This is Research Rank Repeat. I am one of your co-host, Alyssa.
This is co-host Hannah.
Now, we drag that on for way too long, but we have a little, I don't know, a mini-sode. I think we'll revisit the subject again. But today, we are visiting a staple of our childhood known as Animal Crossing. Hannah and I have a long, layered history with the franchise of Animal Crossing. But not the newest one, which is the most popular and, according to my notes, the second best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch. So we're not going to talk about that, though. That was
So sorry.
a little out there. We're not going to talk about that, though, because we don't give a shit about that. Hannah and I today are talking about villagers. Talking about anthropomorphic villagers, animals who do shit and have personalities and will yell at you and that you send letters to that you hate and hope that they move away. Or you keep hitting them with a net until they get mad. And we're not just doing 5, and we're not doing 10. We're doing 7. The top 7 best and worst Animal Crossing villagers. Now let's get the criteria, because we got some weird criteria here. Hannah and I are only doing villagers from games that we've played. Now this includes the original Animal Crossing Wild World, and Animal Crossing City Folk. And that's it. We've not played New Horizons. We have not played the one where you're a camp person. The one on the 3DS. New Leaf. Sorry, excuse me. So we're not covering those 2 games because we've never played them. And we also have the option to include any townspeople if you see fit. We were considering doing it as its own separate category, and I think maybe at some point we will just rank the townspeople. But yeah, so that's what we're doing today. Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Hannah, before we get started?
The first thing that came to my head, which is actually horrible, is that me and Alyssa used to basically try and, bully our neighbors into moving out.
Oh, 100% all the time.
We would send them hate mail.
We would.
We would, like Alyssa said, hit them with nets.
Mm-hmm.
Just be as awful as we could to the neighbors we didn't want there.
Yes.
We certainly had neighbors when they moved. We were very upset and very sad.
Of course.
Just, I guess in general, my thoughts on Animal Crossing. I was talking with someone at work the other day. The game that got brought up was Harvest Moon.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I guess in a way I consider Harvest Moon and Animal Crossing kind of similar in game styles. Mm-hmm. I think Animal Crossing, though, was fun because at least the older games, I know New Horizon, a lot of the critique about it is that the neighbors don't really have personalities anymore.
Right.
And I think one of my favorite things about Animal Crossing was how much personalities the neighbors had.
Right. Yeah.
And it was kind of cool. I think Animal Crossing was cool as a kid because you felt almost like an adult because you were doing tasks and stuff like that were adult tasks, but it was still a game play thing.
Right.
It was fun. I mean, I certainly spent hours and hours playing, trying to get a good house, trying to design a room, countless amount of time on that game.
I think specifically the one I played the most was Animal Crossing Wild World, the one for the Nintendo DS. I probably collectively over my entire life, I probably played several days of time worth of time of that game. Countless hours. I beat the game and restarted a new game because I had literally got through all the houses. I got all the fish, all the bugs. I was just bored, so I started a new game. It's just a game you can go back to. Kind of like The Sims, in a way.
I was going to say, it's very similar to The Sims in that.
But yeah, there's so many, great memories I have from playing it.
For sure.
I think probably my most played game of all time, I'd have to imagine. Collectively, just Animal Crossing, I think.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the same for me.
Yeah. Today, because we're just focusing on the villagers, I'm just going to do a really brief background about Animal Crossing. If we decide to visit it again in the future in some capacity, we can do a little more thorough. Let's be honest, it's a little mini-sode because we're both having a busy week, and this was on our docket of things we wanted to do. So we just kind of pushed it forward a little bit to make it a little easier on ourselves.
AKA, we ran out of time on our other episode.
Yes. And let's talk about Animal Crossing, Hannah. So Animal Crossing is a social simulation game. It's a video game series published by Nintendo. Good old Nintendo. So the series was created by Katsuya Iguchi and Hisashi Nogami. I'm sorry if I butcher the Japanese names. So basically this game, if for those who are not familiar, you play as a human who lives with anthropomorphic animals as villagers. You have a home, you decorate your house, you have a lot of openness in like designing your character, designing your house, like hairstyles. I think now you can do skin colors and a lot more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, like characteristic traits that you can manipulate.
Yeah, like diverse.
Yes, then compared to other games. So it is also well known for its open-ended gameplay, which is basically just like, you can do whatever you want at any time. And that also, from the get-go, from the original game, you utilized the internal clock of the game structure. So basically you followed time as it exists in real time. So like there was, midnight, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 8 o'clock. Like your game went at the time that the game was. And certainly you can manipulate it, and certainly I did that. Shh, don't tell Nintendo. So the initial release, the first game, was released in 2001. It's known as Dobutsu no Mori in Japan, also known as Animal Crossing here. So initially in Japan, released on the Nintendo 64, and was later revamped and remastered for GameCube, and in the United States it only released on the GameCube. So you cannot find it for the Nintendo 64 in the United States. And so in the series there are 5 mainline games total, starting in 2001, and New Horizons, I believe, came out in 2020. Right at the beginning of the pandemic, because so many people bought the game.
Because I remember everyone bought it.
Yeah. Yes. So the games are known for selling very well on their respective consoles that they're released on. The first game sold 2.71 million units, and New Horizons, just to compare, the game that came out in 2020 has sold 37.62 million units, which is 20 times higher than the initial release. And as I said, it's the second best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch. It's also usually very positively rated. I believe New Horizons had a 90 out of 100 on Metacritic or something like that. They're usually well-regarded games. There's a couple spin-offs as well, although some of those aren't as revered as the mainline series are. And it's also known for having quite a high, female demographic. That, over 50% of the people who buy Animal Crossing identify as women. And that it has a huge market in the, 19 to 24 age group, specifically, is what they found. Which I think is very interesting, because there are a lot of... I feel like video games, in general, just tend to skew more towards men than women, in a very general sense. But this is a game that is very pretty evenly split between people, and has a higher female demographic than other games do. But yes, that's just my very brief background. I guess the other thing I should mention is the villagers are animals. It's not every single animal that exists. There are a wide varieties. There's a lot of mammals. There are frogs. There are fish, octopus, mainly though mammals, but you get a variety of a few things, birds here and there. So there are, I believe, in New Horizons, there are over 400 villagers.
It's like 450 something I read.
Total.
Which is insane.
And I know there are some retired villagers as well. There are some that only appeared in earlier games and don't appear again, or in the middle somewhere and haven't appeared. But we are only covering villagers that existed in the first 3 games. So if there's some villager in New Horizons you love, we didn't talk about it, we are just not addressing it because we're only doing games that we've played. So
yeah.
We are helping ourselves because we also are, a lot of it's going to be very biased because it depends on what villagers were in our town, what villagers.
And also like your interactions with them.
Right. And what you remember too. So.
Right. I know. Some of them I had a hard time remembering, honestly. Yes. I had to pull up I found a wiki. Yeah. And I had to pull up information because it's been a while since I played or seen some of these characters.
Yeah.
So we're doing 7 best, 7 worst.
Yes.
I think, we always start with worst. I kind of think we should start with best.
I think we should start with best as well.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get heated when we talk about worst, so.
Of course.
I will start.
Okay.
Okay, so for my number 7 for best, I have Brewster, who was the pigeon barista. He was in the New Leaf game we had for our DSs.
It was called Wild World.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Wild World. We didn't have New Leaf. I made that up. Wild World. He was super quiet, but it was cool because the more you went and visited him and the more you, would get coffee, he would start to talk more. He just seemed like a really nice, kind, generous person. And I respect that. And I respect a quiet person who's also, very respectful and listens.
Yeah, I had Brewster as my honorable mention. He was close to the top 7. I really liked him. I liked going down there. It was really nice. Good spot. I just realized I didn't include a character in my top 7 that I should have, and that's fine.
Do you want to switch?
No, it's fine. I'll just accept. I'll take the hit. Yeah, so Brewster, I liked that he was, start off very quiet, and the more you talk to him, the more open he'd get, and I just liked the vibe of the coffee shop in the museum. So,
yeah.
I don't mention there. So, but for number 7, I have Antonio, who was an anteater, and he was in my Wild World town, and I remember really liking him. He was fun. Also anteaters, anteater's not a normal animal, a mammal that you see super often. And there was another anteater named Annabelle that I also considered as well because I liked her as well. But Antonio I remember really, really liking. And he moved from my brother's town to my town, so I stole him. And that holds a special place for me as well, that I stole someone's villager away.
For the reason that you stole them.
Yes.
Yeah. So, number 7, I went with Boone.
6.
Sorry, number 6. It's been a day. I've cried 4 times. So, number 6 is Boone. And he was a gorilla. I had him in my Wild World game. Mm-hmm. And he was the reason I liked Boone was because he was always really cool. He was always super nice. He was kind of like a jock, but he also wasn't too cocky about that fact. Mm-hmm. He just was always checking in on people, and I liked him. And I'm pretty sure he was almost always in my town. I think he moved away once, but he came right back. So I'm he can't stay away.
Nice.
Love that.
Number 6, I have Tangy, who is a literal cat made out of an orange or a tangerine. You're up to your interpretation.
Right.
And, the fact that there's just this orange cat whose head is literally a fruit, I don't know, something about that makes me really happy. Her house was just fruit as well, fruit furniture, which I also liked to collect fruit furniture as well, so there's a bond there. But she was just, a super cool cat with, a leaf on her head. I think she was in both of my both, our GameCube town and also Wild World, so showed up more than once, and always liked her.
Yeah. This is, going to be really interesting because I don't know, besides, characters from the GameCube game we had, if we're going to have many similarities, because I think we always had very different villagers.
In Wild World, yeah, I know.
Right. Okay. Number 5. I went with Leopold, who was the lion. He was in our Animal Crossing GameCube game. Our brother always really loved him. And I think I liked him because he was really cool. He had green hair. He was always had like good energy. He was super energetic. He was always like excited to see people. And I don't know. I feel like he always had good style. He was into sports as well. There were a lot of characters into sports, which, love exercise. But yeah, I think he just like got along with everyone, and that was cool to me.
Yeah, we were really sad when Leopold moved away.
Yeah,
I remember.
It was a bad day.
He was on my short list, but he did not make my top 7, unfortunately. But I wrote down a list of like characters, and he was on that list, my initial one, before I narrowed it down. Number 5, I have Goldie, who is a dog. Goldie is such a sweetheart. Sweetest, nicest little dog ever. Plus, she's like a cute little like golden retriever yellow lab, and what's not to like about that? And she was also a character who showed up in both games that we had, so that made it extra special. And she was great.
Yeah, she was on my short list. She didn't. She almost made it, but didn't quite make the cut. Number 4, I went with Maple. Maple was a like brown bear. She used to always say honey. She would call you honey, and she gave off very much like mom vibes, like friend, like the mom group or the mom friend of the group vibes is what she gave off. I just like loved her. She was always in my town. It seemed like she was in. Was she in? She was in Wild World, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. Because she was always in my town, and I remember she moved, and she gave me her photo, and it was so sad. And I think she eventually came back, but I remember, like, the day she left, I was like, I will never be the same. Obviously, like, it was a bit dramatic at the time, but, stakes were higher when you were kids. But yeah, she was just really sweet.
So number 4, I have Ace, who is a bird, like a blue kind of bird. And there were a few ones I considered that were very similar. They were kind of like the jock, like silly characters. Like there was Drake, who is a duck, and like Alfonso, an alligator. So they're all kind of a very similar one. But I remember really, really liking Ace. Anchovy as well up there. But yeah, so he was just very like, pumped up, like, let's go, let's do this, like, and I really liked that character and that villager. Very fun.
Yeah, I have Ace as number 3. I agree with you. I had like the list of like Anchovy, like I had basically the same people as you, and I was like, they're all so similar in style that I could pick one. But Ace was cool. He was like good at having a conversation. We were always excited, like when he was in our village. I think I had him. I don't think I ever had him in Wild World, but we always had him in the original Animal Crossing game, and he was cool. He just like gave off good energy and good vibes.
So number 3, I have Roscoe, who is this black horse with red eyes, who is the grumpiest man you'll ever meet in your life. His house is literally a chessboard, a black and white chessboard. But there's something so lovable about him that I always loved. He was always one of my favorite villagers in Wild World. Never left my town. He could have, just never did. And I don't know, just like something like so great about that. Like the grumpy characters can be really annoying and like not fun, but like I always liked, like he still had a good attitude even though he was like, I hate everything and I'm going to sleep in until 1 p.m. And I can relate to that. I understand that aspect very well. So he was always like a favorite of my Wild World town. So yeah, number 3.
That's an energy we strive for.
Yes.
Number 2, I had Aurora, and it's probably because she was a penguin, and penguins have always been my favorite animal. She was just super nice, and I remember the day she gave me her photo, like, that was all I wanted. I just kept trying to get myself invited over to her house so I could get a photo of her, and she just, like, she was such an adorable little penguin. She was one of those people that, like, she could never be rude to anyone. And she was always, like, talking very positively about the rest of the neighbors, which I love, because some of the other neighbors talk mad shit. Yeah. But yeah, she was always very nice.
Yeah, I assumed you were going to have Aurora on your list.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember liking her, but she was never in my town, so I couldn't put her on there.
Right.
Number 2.
Because I wouldn't let her leave my town, that's why.
That's fair. Number 2, I have Maple. I loved Maple. The fact that she called you honey, that she was just like always very supportive, always wanted to make sure you were doing okay. Was one of my favorite villagers. I agree. When I got her photo, I was like, I think she was the first villager to give me a photo, was Maple or something like that, and it was like the best day ever. And I was so sad when she moved. Like I didn't play for like a few days, and I came back on and she had left, and I was like, this is the worst day of my life. And I remember where she lived, like where her house was, like it was on like this little island. Her and another person lived there like at the same time, and the other neighbor always moved in and out, but she was always there until she wasn't. And she had a cute little like yellow outfit. Yeah. And her house is really nice. I liked the design of her house, but yeah, really a top tier villager.
Yeah. Number 1 was always going to be Kiki. There was no doubt about it. Kiki was like a black cat. She gave off very good black cat energy. I'm assuming by your head now that you have Kiki's number 1 too, and I kind of knew that.
Oh, no, first one I wrote down. Number 1.
Right. We always loved Kiki. Like, since the beginning. She was one of our first, I think she was like the first neighbor we ever had.
In the first, like, you start in the game.
Right, you get like an original town.
You get like maybe 4 or 5 neighbors, and she was one of our first neighbors.
Yeah. And I remember we would always we were always so scared we would turn on the game and she would be gone.
Can I say, I played the GameCube maybe a year or 2 ago during COVID. Still there. Kiki still never left. Still there.
We love a reliable neighbor. We love someone who never leaves. She was just cool. She just was always like happy to see you. She always was trying to come up with like nicknames for you. She just gave off like positive energy. She gave off like the like supportive friend vibe. And yeah, she's reliable and consistent, and I love that.
You know, it's interesting because I never got Kiki as a villager in Wild World.
I didn't either.
Never. Not once.
Nope.
The entire time I played that game, years and years and years, never got her as a villager. But I think there's something so special about the fact that she was like one of the first villagers, like that was our experience to Animal Crossing. And I think that because of that, it was so impactful that, like, clearly if we both have her as number 1, like, we loved Kiki.
Right. Yeah.
This little cat with this little, like, Gingim, Grism, whatever. She had this, like, little sweater on. I can't do words good. She had a cute little sweater. She had a little, like, cute house set up. She just, like, was always a great neighbor, always a great attitude. Plus, you know, black cat, always great. And always reminded me of Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yes.
Which I wonder if it's a nod to that. I have to think maybe.
Potentially.
Yeah.
All right. Worst. Let's get into worst.
This one was way harder than the best.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't figure out how to fit everyone.
Yes.
And I didn't.
Yeah. Number 7, I went with Amelia. Amelia was an eagle. I remember specifically she used to always criticize my clothing, which I don't like to be judged. She just, like, always was in people's business. She couldn't, like, mind to her own, like, self, and I don't like people who are just always judging people's choices and are always, like, interfering with your lives. We don't need that.
Yeah. I considered Amelia, but she did give me a photo of herself, so I had to respect that at the very least.
It's okay.
Number 7, I have Eunice, who is this, like, sheep ram, really, like, piglet energy, but in a bad way. She just, like, was not a pleasant neighbor to be around. Like, she just, like, wasn't very engaging. She wasn't very interesting. I just, like, never liked interacting with her, and I was more than happy when she finally left.
Yeah. Number 6, I went with Tom Nook and the boys. Tom Nook was incredibly annoying. He used to follow you around the store. And then in Wild World, he brought along the 2 little mini versions of himself, and they were somehow worse.
I think
they used to.
I think they were in the GameCube or the GameCube version.
Were they?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just remember them a lot in Wild World, and I remember they were very, very annoying. They would try to upsell you on everything. I just, like, I don't need someone following me around a store. I hate that. I hate when you go in a store and someone is like, I'm fine if someone's like, can I help you with anything? And I'm like, no, thank you. I'm just looking. But if you just keep following me around the store every 5 seconds asking me, I'm going to leave.
Just be like,
yeah, I'm not going to buy anything. So, Tom Nook.
yes. I did not put Tom Nook on my worst list. He was on the list. He was on the short list. I considered it. Strongly considered it. Due to the reasons described. But didn't make the list. What's wrong, Mish Mish? What's the matter, huh? Sorry, he's climbing into my window. He's making some noise. So number 6. This is purely because of how funny I think this is. Number 6, I have Pee-wee. So Pee-wee's a gorilla. He was grumpy, but in a bad way. He, was mean. We didn't like him. And this is what Hannah was talking about, where we used to write mean letters to our neighbors. So during COVID, I was, living at home for about a month, right when, the stay-at-home order was at place, and I was working from home, so I just, moved home, because I was like, well, I live by myself, I'm gonna hate my life. And so I played a lot of Animal Crossing on the GameCube, because I was like, why not? I'm fucking bored out of my mind. And I was talking, Pee-wee is still in the town. And it was like, wow, you haven't been here in 150 months or whatever. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, hey, look at this letter my neighbor Austin sent me, our brother. And the letter just goes, Dear Pee-wee, you're fat, from Austin. And I could not stop laughing.
You're dying.
And I took a picture and I sent it to my brother. And I was like, do you even remember this? I was losing my mind. I was like, the fact that he just was like, you're fat. Get out. And we used to do that. We would send mean neighbors to send mean letters to our neighbors that we didn't want. And the villagers we wanted gone. And I remember not liking Pee-wee, but he didn't leave. So, purely out of, spite, Pee-wee's number 6.
That's fair. Number 5, I went with Olivia. She was a white cat. She was super rude. She was, thought she was, too good for everyone. I remember she used to always, in the middle of a conversation, she would just, either space out or just, start talking about herself. And, she was just not a good listener, and I don't like someone who's not a good listener.
Yeah. I considered putting her on the list.
Yeah.
I considered it. Number 5, I have Blathers. This man falls asleep on the job constantly. He hates insects, and he's a curator of a museum that has insects, and he's like, ugh, don't take it out of the container, ugh. It talks about how he's going to eat every fish. He's like, why don't you have more things for me? Don't you have more? And it's he won't actually get anyone to curate, get specimens. You have to do all the fucking work for him. How can you claim that you run a museum when you're like, hey, random people, send me fish, bugs, some paintings, and fossils, and I'll put them up for you. But you have to do all the work. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to sleep all fucking day. I'm going to stay up all night. And he's just kind of a know-it-all too. And nobody likes a Molly.
That's true.
Fuck Blathers 2022.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Number 4 was... Oh,
and I also should mention he's an owl.
Oh, yes.
I guess I should have said that.
I considered him, and then I was like, if I'm doing Tom Nook, I can't do both, and I would
fair.
rather put Tom Nook on the list. Number 4 is, depending on how you say it, pecan or pecan. Whatever fits your, accent, your sayings.
Pecan.
So, she was a squirrel. I remember she used to gossip a lot. This is what I was talking about. She gossiped a ton about every neighbor. She was always telling me about other neighbors' business, and I'm like, no one likes a nosy Nancy. And she talked way too much about herself. I'm like, if she wasn't talking about the neighbors, she was talking about herself. She never really asked you how you were doing or anything like that. And I just, literally her quote says, promises are like pie crust. They're made to be broken. On her wiki page. So that basically tells you everything you need to know about her.
Yeah, we have a match. Number 4, I have Pecan, the squirrel. I agree. She was very self-absorbed. She did not care about you. She loved gossip. Her house was really pretentious. She had a lot of, like, classical stuff. And was, like, gave off the sense that she was too good for you and too good for this town, but was there. So it's like, well, why are you here then? Right. And yeah, she just, like, and she was a villager. I remember she was a villager in our original town, and she was one of my original villagers in Wild World. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This squirrel is one of my first neighbors. I was pissed off, but I got her photo, and then I sent her packing. She did eventually leave my town. But yeah, I agree. Yeah. Same things for the same reasons you said.
Yeah. Number 3, I went with Apollo. And I said, gives off that, if that's not a red-blooded American, I don't know what it is vibe. He was always one of my neighbors, and he was always very rude to me. He was so rude to me all the time. And honestly, I think just the fact that he was always rude to me in Wild World gave me a really bad taste in my mouth. Like, for no reason. He used to just always say rude things. He was never nice to me, ever. It's a personal vendetta. That's all it is.
That's fair. Number 3, I have Suey, who is a purple pig.
You can't see, but yeah. I'm flipping off Suey.
You rolled your eyes and then flipped off the camera. Suey is, like, one of the worst neighbors. Like Pecan, but 2 times as bad.
Right.
Her makeup was terrible. She just, like, was so pretentious and so stuck up and, like, so not pleasant in any way, shape, or form. I specifically remember one time hitting her on the head with a net until she stormed off. And we wanted her gone so bad. Like, we dug pitfalls around her. We trapped her in pitfalls.
Trapped her.
We dug holes around her so she couldn't leave. Like, we tried so many things to get her to go. And I think she eventually moved, but it was, like, torture.
Yeah.
That was, like, the whole, like, our time frame from when she moved until she left was trying to get her to leave, which says a lot.
Right. Yeah, number 2 is Suey. I wrote that she's rude, she's arrogant, she reminds me of the kid in class who thought they knew everything and didn't. And yeah, everything you said. We literally berated this person so much to leave because of how much we despise them. That really says all you need to know. Wait, how did we switch order?
Did we?
How are you now doing your number 1 before me? Oh, you're number 2.
I'm doing number 2 right now.
Okay, yeah. Just kidding. I thought you were on number 1.
We're good.
Okay, I was confused.
No, I'm doing number 2. Number 2, Mr. Rossetti. Piece of shit, mole. Piece of shit. I cannot stand this man. If you shut off your game accidentally, or like me, your DS runs out of battery, and you don't have enough time to plug it in, he shows up at your house, tells you what a piece of shit you are, and is like, I'll delete your game file if you don't save. And you just have to go through text after fucking text, being like, I promise I'll save. I'll promise I'll save. And it's like, just let me play my game. I'm sorry it ran out of battery. I'm sorry I accidentally turned it off because I was trying to adjust to things and I accidentally elbowed it. Like, this man he was relentless. He would not leave you alone. And because of that, I have a vendetta against him.
Number 1, I am looking at a picture of this villager and it's making me want to throw up. Mallory. The fucking duck. Said fuck her and her snooty ass bitchy attitude. Mallory was the biggest bitch in the entire world. She, like, looks like a bitch. She was purple. She had this green hair. God, she was horrible. And I remember I had her as an original person in Wild World, and I wanted to die because I was not. And I tried to get rid of her forever. She finally moved, but it took so long. She was rude to everyone. She was rude to, like, Aurora, which how can you do that? She was a Scorpio. I'm looking at her thing. She was a Scorpio, which makes sense. But as a fellow Scorpio, I do not condone the behavior.
Yeah, number 1, Mallory. I'd just like to point out that Mallory, Suey, and Pecan all had purple. Pecan had purple eyeshadow. Purples. It's the purple characters. Mallory was the biggest bitch you would ever find in this game. A purple duck, like, so stuck up, so self-absorbed, so entitled, so mean, so rude, to the point where it's like, I just wouldn't even talk to her. I just wouldn't address her at all. Horrible. A horrible neighbor. Absolutely horrendous. Should be booted from the game. Needs to go. A 2 thumbs down from me.
Yeah. 2 fingers up, middle fingers.
2 fingers up and 2 thumbs down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, fuck Mallory 2022.
Fuck Mallory 2022.
We don't need that energy.
No.
All right. So, my best, I had Brewster, Boone, Leopold, Maple, Ace, Aurora, Kiki. And then worst, I had Amelia, Tom Nook and the boys, Olivia, Pecan, Apollo, Suey, and Mallory.
So for my top 7 best, I have Antonio, Tangy, Goldie, Ace, Roscoe, Maple, and Kiki. And my worst, I have Eunice, Pee-wee, Blathers, Pecan, Suey, Mr. Rossetti, and Mallory. I just like to point out that I thought about how I did not put KK Slider on my list as I was...
Oh, my God.
Yes, as I was talking about a Brewster, because I thought about the coffee shop, and I'm like, and that's where KK Slider is. And I went, oh, fuck. And I should have put it on my list, and I was waiting for you to say it so I could be like, that's the character I forgot, and then you didn't. And I was like, oh,
I forgot.
Yeah,
I forgot.
I forgot, too.
Oh, no.
Because KK Slider is a fantastic character. A singing dog with a guitar. What's not to love?
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, this was, I think, you got a little heated Animal Crossing energy out of us.
Always.
Always great. We love complaining and talking shit about
That's true.
anthropomorphic animals, you know?
Yes.
What's not to love?
It's one of our favorite things. I need to stop doing that. It's one of our favorite things in life.
I would agree. But yeah, so this is just a quick little episode complaining about Animal Crossing and loving Animal Crossing. If you'd like to support us, we have social media, we have Twitter, we have Gmail, r3podcast@gmail.com. Any comments or questions or concerns you have or ideas you want us to cover. Yeah, we'll be back next week with something.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank Joseph McDade for our intro music. He provides free music available for all kinds of creative use. The song that we used is called Sunrise Expedition, and you can find it and his other music on his website, josephmcdade.com. If you would like to reach us, you can email us at r3podcasts@gmail.com. That's R, the number 3, podcasts@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Instagram by searching Research Rank Repeat. Oh. I turned on a different light. 1 second. Oh, fuck. Don't mind me. I'm just a curious little rhino.
It's kind of hot in these rhinos.
Okay.